Three, two, one. Beau, we are going. I appreciate you coming on, my man.
Yeah, dude, I appreciate you having me, man. And I wanted to say it was pretty cool just having you drop into the inbox and use social media for what's intended to be used for, using the tool right. You know what I mean? As far as like creating connection and reaching out, showing gratitude. Like I'm all about it, man. I think some people have a pretty poor relationship with the tool. They don't know how to use it. And so I really appreciate you reaching out, and I'm stoked to be here.
Yeah, I appreciate the compliment too. That's pretty much what I use it for. If I didn't have to be on it all the time, I wouldn't be. I run my business through a lot of it, so a lot of connections are made, but positive and negatives, man. You got to make sure you're following the right people, reaching out to the right people, because that algorithm's tricky. So I appreciate that.
It is, dude. It is. It's all part of the diet, right? Not just
Exactly.
what you put in your mouth, but the people you're around, the information you consume. So yeah, I'm here for it, dude. I appreciate it.
Exactly. You're out in Colorado, is that right?
Colorado, Denver. Yep, South Denver.
Well, yeah, see, I only know what the internet tells me, so I'm looking forward to this. This will be a fun time. Beau, I've never tried this before. You want to play a game?
Dude, I'm here for it. Yeah, let's go.
Cool. I'm gonna go Larry King on you. You remember Larry King?
I do.
Okay, he used to play a game with some of his people called If You Only Knew. I got some questions written down. I'm just gonna rapid fire, kind of break the ice. I've never done this, so if you're willing, let's send it. Good?
Giddy up. Let's go.
Secret talent.
Recognizing patterns, honestly. I think it's one of those things that I wish I could turn off sometimes, but having dealt with human beings for 20 years now, the things that you begin to pick up on when you deal with people, sometimes you wish you could turn it off.
Guilty pleasure.
Guilty pleasure. Oh man, that's a tough one. Cereal for sure. I'm not even guilty about it though. I'm pretty adamant about the carbohydrate intake, man. The war on carbs. I always like to congratulate carbs on a war well fought, man. So I'm definitely not part of the anti-carb crowd. So yeah, but I will definitely get into some cereal.
I always tell my clients, I'm like, dude, cereal is one of the most underrated nighttime snacks you can go with.
Throw 2 scoops of whey protein, whole milk, man. I'll put that on my Instagram feed. Everything, the 80 to 90% of the other stuff, I put down my pie hole. Cake, rice, berries, proteins. Like my diet's relatively clean, but then after I get my protein and fat, if I need the extra carbohydrate, I get a bowl the size of my head, 3 cups of cereal, whole milk, 2 scoops of whey protein. I get no questions about any of the other food I consume, but you throw up one bowl of cereal on the feed and everyone's like, oh dude, what kind? How often do you eat it? It's like, you guys are focused on the wrong shit.
Yep. Looking for that chink in your armor, man. Biggest risk you ever took?
Man, I'm a habitual risk taker, I think. And I'm a big fan of saying yes first and finding out how after. Probably the biggest risk I took was leaving what everybody thought was a very lucrative career when I was an engineer with the DoD. Had the Vegas pool boy douchebag lifestyle, making money, had a great house, what everybody thought was a great job. And then I literally just left 3/4 of my shit at the curb and moved out to Colorado to start all over.
Best compliment you ever received?
Best compliment I've ever received is one of my old athletes who had to leave the gym, and he was previously a friend of mine. I'd help him work through a lot of personal stuff because that's obviously, I get pretty intimate with my athletes as far as just there's the physical training and then there's everything that dictates the results you will get from that physical training. And he sent me a text and it was something along the lines of, it was never as much, because as much shit as I tend to give my athletes, I hug really hard, right? It's kind of a tough love thing. And he said, there was never one instance where I thought you didn't absolutely give a fuck about my results, my training, and my life. I think that's one of the greatest compliments.
That is. Good on you. What never fails to make you laugh? I'm trying to do my Stephen or Larry King accent too.
Yeah. You've been working on it, I can tell. 2 days. What never fails to make me laugh? Honestly, myself, my own bullshit, the narratives that I create in my head, the cages I create. I think if you just sit there quietly for 2 minutes and monitor the background chatter, you'll see that it's just, for most human beings, just an absolute mess up there. And you just have to sit back, laugh at it, and then power on with whatever you were intending to do in the first place.
The worst piece of advice you ever received?
Ooh, worst piece of advice. I think Paris Hilton, she didn't give it to me directly, but it's, and I might mess up the quote, but it's something along the lines of, if somebody asks you to do something for them, do it really badly so that they'll never ask you to do anything for them again. I think that's one of the worst pieces of advice I've ever heard. And I cherish all of Paris Hilton's collection, obviously, except that one piece.
Something you wish you were better at.
Something I wish I was better at. That's probably the biggest list I have, to be honest. Something I wish I was better at. It's hard to pick just one. Right now I'm doing a lot of apnea training, but I think that's kind of a sellout. So I'm getting into some free diving. I wish I was better at expressing gratitude more often openly. I think it a lot and I keep a lot of it to myself to kind of reframe the mind as a threat detection device. It's kind of built into our software. But one of the practices that I have in place is similar. And that's why I have so much respect for you reaching out, is when I started reaching out to people that I saw who were really going through it. Obviously, you own a business. Until you go through that, I don't think you realize how isolating it is and the loneliness and all the other emotions that come along with that. And it's an incredible growth period. But I think we spend so much time wanting the validation, right? Socially. And I'm not saying that everybody's gonna give you attaboys and pats on the backs, but when you're doing something really, really difficult, it's tough to admit, but we want somebody to reach out and say, like, I hear you, bro. Like, I've been through it. Keep fucking killing it. And so the moment I started outwardly sending messages to people, some that I didn't even know, I just respected their hustle and I respected their grind and I could see that they were going through it. And again, this is one of those pattern watching things. You see people you admire, and let's just use social media as an example. You see people you admire and they're posting and they're doing this, and then all of a sudden they go dark for like 2 or 3 months, and then you hear a little chirp from them. I've started reaching out to those people, and the amount of energy and love I've gotten back in doing that has been tremendously powerful for me. So one of the things I want to continue to get better at is outwardly expressing gratitude for those who are putting in their maximum effort, because I know the feeling. And when I was going through that myself through different iterations of my life, that was the one thing I wanted, was to know I wasn't going through it alone. Because I don't know your entire background, but I'm really good in chaos. I'm kind of designed for it. When the room's on fire and everybody has their hands up and they're running around, like, I know exactly what to do. And then when it gets quiet, that's when I tend to get in trouble. But in that chaos, I think it's good to have people reach out and show respect and gratitude. When you've been through it, I always use the metaphor of like you smell it on other people to some degree. So when I catch that scent, I guess, of other people going through it, like reaching out and showing gratitude is done. And actually, that's probably also done more for my career than any textbook course or certificate that I've ever worked for.
Yeah, we're gonna circle back to that one. I got two more for you. You're stranded on a desert island with one person. Who is it?
Oh man, do you go resourceful here?
I can tell you what Cat Williams said when he was getting asked these questions.
What was that?
A good swimmer.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, probably somebody who could design. Actually, I have a really good friend of mine, Bennett. He's been one of my athletes forever. He's one of the most interesting people I've ever met. And as far as resourcefulness, I mean, he's a strength athlete. He's a mathematician by education, but he's a project manager for fun because he loves construction. And he'll just come into the gym randomly carrying a book this thick on how to make a homemade canoe. So Bennett, if you ever listen to this, man, you would be my guy.
Hell yeah. All right, last one. Something you long believed to be true, but realized that it wasn't.
Believed to be true, but realized it wasn't. I've changed my mind on so much personally and professionally over the last, I'm 43 now. So basically for a long, long time. Something repeat the question. I wish to be true, but wasn't.
Something you long believed to be true, but then realized that it wasn't.
I think for a long time, how do I word it? Believed, I hope I don't mess this up, that so much of our life was predicated by external circumstances and that we had less control due to the stories we were told growing up on how life is supposed to be and what we were supposed to do with our life. And I fought that for a long time and tried walking the path. I'm glad I walked it because I think you have to learn how much autonomy you really have and how much control you really have. And I'm glad I see the other side now, because the other side, you own a business. It's not easier. It's not easier. And I don't know if that fully answers the question, but I think I bought into the narrative that you're supposed to walk this specific path, this well-trodden trail that everybody else does, and meander through your day and, you know, have the wife and the kids and the picket fence and the 401 and the retirement. And I bought into that story for a while until it wasn't working for me and I didn't know why. For a long time, I thought that you think there's almost something wrong with you because you see everybody else who's just kind of mutually agreed to no, like this is what you do. And I moved around a lot growing up, so I was already very different. And I tried for a long time to fit in a lot, insecure, big time card carrying people pleaser. And so I tried following that path, and then ultimately realizing due to, it wasn't for me. And so it took a long time to reconstruct that narrative of just how much control I have over my own destiny. And a lot of that's kind of part of my message now is creating your own story and, something that's true to you in this level of self-exploration, because this isn't how would I say it? This isn't a dress rehearsal. You know what I mean? Like your day to day, your life, your week, your month, your job. Like this isn't a dress rehearsal. Like this is all you get. This is it. There's nothing else. How you want to view that and the stories we tell about ourselves, with the stories we tell ourselves about who we are and what we do and what we want to do, totally dictates the outcome of your life. And I don't want to I noticed when I was walking everybody else's path, how much I was having to pivot to find other ways to be happy and fulfilled. And a lot of those aren't good or healthy or sustainable. Kind of going down a rabbit hole here. But I think that was the one thing I bought into is fucking get in line.
So we've been just over 15 minutes here. We've known each other. What I've noticed about Beau is that you're, in my eyes, extremely intentional with the words that are coming out of your mouth. Like I just ripped, I don't know, 7, 8, 9 questions in a row at you, and you didn't really just fly off the seat of your pants with them and answer them immediately. You took a second, you paused, you thought about it, how you're going to articulate it. Have you always been like that? Because a lot of guys, like, they get asked a question, maybe they just feel like they have to give an answer right away, regardless of what the answer is. Like, hey, here it is. And you thought about them. You're very intentional, I've noticed.
Purpose, one of kind of my new mantras, if you will, is on purpose and with purpose. And I mean, there's so many directions I can go. Language is powerful. Language is way more powerful a tool and than we give it credit for. And between the mind and the mouth, with words, and I'm going to go down a rabbit hole here. Why I'm so intentional with action is because I think that verbal communication is the latest form of communication we actually have. And I think human beings are pretty bad at it. We're good at making sounds and noises with our mouth with this agreed upon thing. But at the end of the day, words that aren't backed up by some level of action are empty and meaningless. So I try as closely as I can to make sure that the sounds I'm making with my mouth actually line up to the human being I am and the human being that I'm working on becoming. So I try to do everything in my life with a level of intention, I think. Good or bad, at least there's effort behind it.
Yeah. Well, I like it and I appreciate it. I feel like the world would be a lot better off if people would kind of think before they open up their mouth sometimes.
Yep. And never miss a good opportunity to shut the fuck up. That's
Dude,
the other side.
you're full of these. I'm running out.
That's the other side, man.
You're full of these like kind of like one-liner mantras, and they're really, really good. Never miss an opportunity to shut the fuck up.
Dude, so it's one of the most, doing nothing is sometimes the absolute best thing you can do.
Yeah.
And I noticed, dude, when you reached out, and again, like I want to know more about you as well, but I don't want to turn this into an interview. I could tell by your demeanor when you sent that video to reach out, calm, cool, collected. I was like, this guy knows some shit. I want to talk with him because I get other people reach out for podcasts, but it's just this overly hyped pep rally. And I'm like, no, dude, like that's me 10, 15 years ago. Oh, you want to talk to me? Fuck yeah. Let's make this about me. Anymore, it's like, no, dude, like there's chances are I have something better to do with my time, and learning to say no is a superpower. But when you reached out, man, I was like, this guy knows some shit. I want to connect with him.
Well, I think, not to pat my own self on the ass, but I feel like that's why a lot of people enjoy listening to this show and enjoy, they never know what they're going to get when they actually come on. And I don't know how I'm going to structure the whole fucking thing anyways. We just went with a Larry King segment, which was something totally new, but I'm pretty good at just shutting the fuck up. Because this is I guess you can call it an opportunity for you, but it's really an opportunity for me selfishly to just sit back and learn. With the listeners, it's always about the guest. Always, every fucking time. It ain't about me. But selfishly, I'm trying to learn too. That's why I try to get interesting people on here, such as yourself. And I knew that you had a lot to offer just by checking your stuff out. And I knew that you have a somewhat of a relationship with BP, who's been on the show, and I liked my conversation with him. So yeah, thanks for noticing. And God, I really like that. Never miss an opportunity to shut the fuck up. It's so true, man. It's so
And
true.
as a coach, I've been coaching now for a long time. This comes into the recognizing patterns. People love talking about their favorite subject, and that's
Mhm.
themselves.
Yeah.
And so if you just, if you want to win people over, ask questions. Yeah, I think there's a rule, and I tend to follow this, and I will not follow it for this podcast because obviously this will be a conversation, but I'll notice, I don't know if it's like an 80-20 rule, 70-30, they're all made up anyway. But if I'm doing 70% of the talking or 80% of the talking and not 20% of the talking, I need to switch that around. So that's one thing I'm cognizant of, because you can ask a lot of my athletes. I go on some elite tangents and rants because I think, especially 5:30 in the morning when I'm coaching clients, it's like, what are you mad about today? And we just joke around and I go on these tangents. But other than that, it's how are you? I want to know how you're doing. And that's, I think curiosity, again, is an absolute superpower. And it's hard to be curious without asking questions or without shutting the fuck up.
Yeah. For whatever reason, that kind of reminds me of a communication technique called mirroring. Have you heard of that? Yeah, where you basically just kind of repeat maybe a small phrase that somebody said to you, and it makes that person feel as if that you're more engaged and you're listening and you're inquiring, when really you're not saying anything apart from repeating what they had already said.
And then they go on and
Yes.
they just keep going and going and going. Yeah.
Yeah. Shout out Chris Foss, who won't seem
Make
to
them
come.
feel like the most interesting person in the world. That's
Exactly.
charisma.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You've brought up, I think, 2 or 3 times now, recognizing patterns. Does that come from like your coaching background, or I mean, that you call it, I mean, you said it was a secret talent of yours. What do you mean by like recognizing patterns? What types of patterns are you recognizing?
They're different. I'm going to go out way on a limb here. I moved around a lot growing up, multiple. I mean, my upbringing was amazing. Parents were wonderful, but moved around a lot. And, 4 different elementary schools, 3 different high schools, straight into the Air Force, straight to Tokyo. And I think one of the kind of, I don't want to say survival mechanism, but growing up, it was about analyzing and again, this is adult Beau saying this, not child Beau. Child Beau is just trying to make friends and play baseball. But when you put yourself around, when you move around and you change your environment, you're around so many different types of people and cultures and perspectives and ideas and opinions. Like when I lived in California, I thought racism was like a thing of the past, right? When I lived in San Diego growing up, 2 things I didn't know were still around were country music and racism. And then I went to high school in Mississippi. And guess what?
God.
I'm not hating on country music. Both of them are alive and very, very well. Like they're
Yes.
both thriving.
Yep.
And when you put yourself in these scenarios and you pay attention to your peers, what people are talking, I don't know. It was just something I became kind of obsessed with, just watching people. And I think if you know how to shut your pie hole long enough and observation is an art. And there's a balance between what you see and what you don't see. And I'm always more curious about what I don't see. And so you just start paying more attention. Language, body language, I think, is another thing that's highly underutilized when dealing with people. And if you just sit back and pay attention, it doesn't hurt that I watch people move for a living. Right. And the first piece of advice when I got into strength and conditioning was, I was like, what classes should I take? What certifications should I get? Which methods should I follow? Which coaches should I follow? And the first piece of advice I got was, you need to watch 5,000 people move. You need to watch them perform an air squat or a back squat. Textbooks are great, but there's not a textbook mover out there. And on top of that, every single elite or high level athlete is going to break these rules anyway. So create your own lens through which, and reference points for which you want to interact with this, pay attention, and that'll give you a better method of guiding people, I think. And so it's just been, I happened to jump into this. Again, I've been a strength coach 15 years now. And before that was a engineer with the DOD. I was Air Force. I've had a absolute sampler platter of careers. So I think just exposing yourself to different environments, different people, I think just gives more exposure, gives you a better reference point to, I don't know, it makes you better at learning and observing.
You mentioned earlier that, falling in line wasn't for you. How did you know that it wasn't for you?
Because it wasn't working. I had, in high school, So when I grew up, I was supposed to go to all these gifted schools and stuff. We moved around a lot, scoring very high on tests. Mind you, I was like 100, I graduated high school at 150 pounds. So I haven't always been like the strength athlete. Sorry, I totally what was your question?
No, you're good. I said you mentioned earlier that falling in line wasn't for you. How did you know that that wasn't necessarily for you? You said because it wasn't working.
Because I had the narrative down. I had my keynote speech when I was in high school, and I knew I did not want to go to, I knew I didn't want to go to college. I didn't know I would end up joining the military, but college wasn't at the time. I'm glad it worked out the way it did and that I didn't go straight to college, because there's no way I would be where I'm at today. But I had the full narrative written down that I was going to do physical therapy and kinesiology and all this stuff because it would please everybody else. But I was aware, I was like, I haven't taken one single step to actually do this. Like, this is just a rehearsed speech that I'm giving out to appease everybody else. And this is not what I want to do. I want to be outside. I want to move my body, and I want to work with human beings. Some of the first memories I have growing up were teaching kids like 5, 6 years old how to do backflips off the swing sets. Like, movement and coaching has always been in my blood. But I had all these other scripts and speeches to appease everybody else on what I wanted to do with my life. And I tried a number of those. Again, a sampler plot of careers. Air Force, had some great, phenomenal jobs when I was in the Air Force, got out. And then I got the job, the money, the lifestyle. And that's when it hit me, is like, I do not want to be doing this. Like, this isn't fulfilling. Luckily, I was around a really good friend group at the time that I was really tight with from the military. And at some point we were just like, this is not working out. And we gave ourselves pretty much a deadline. Like, it's an expiration date. Like, we can only do this for so long. And I think having exposure, going back to exposure, having exposure to so many different things, realizing that you can try something and fail and it doesn't say anything about you. Right? It's just another actually feather in your cap, right? To go out, try something, fail, iterate, evolve, do it again. And if you just repeat that whole bunch, you get really, really confident that the floor is never going to break out from underneath you. There is no, unless you're going to be carried by however many people at a funeral or put in prison for 10 years. Consequences usually aren't that bad if you're not a total piece of shit. And so if you're just out there putting out effort and trying different things and following your curiosity, I think that's the only real true path there is to me. And I think that was I always knew that, but somewhere along the line, we stopped listening to our gut. Our brain's making a bunch of noise. Socially, we're getting a bunch of noise because everybody wants what's best for us. But who at the end of the day knows what's best for us? We do.
Allegedly.
And so when people go into this spiel of follow your dreams and do the thing, but just in case it doesn't work out, you should get the education. You could do this because it's hard out there. It's like, you only hear that from people who fucking gave up. You know what I mean? You hear that from the adults who sit around the fire, rubbing each other's backs, talking about it's okay that you gave up. Because you know what? It's hard out there. It's tough. And they just sit around to this kumbaya shit. You know what I mean? And not everyone's built like that. And I don't want to just secede my autonomy and my agency to create the life that I want due to comfort. And I don't know, a lot of what I train now is, I think, part of my spiel, if you will, is this is trainable skill. I don't know if you're born with it. And even if you are born with it, what does that deterministic approach get you? If you just say, no, like, I wasn't born with this. My 23andMe says I'm not a risk taker. And my grandpa's grandpa wasn't a risk taker. So you know what? I'm just going to hang out here and get the same fucking BMW everybody else has, get the job at Schwab, XYZ, because that right here, it's like people in strength and conditioning, my glutes don't fire. No, your glutes are fucking weak. You don't have this genetic thing where your glutes don't fire. It's the same thing with anything else. It was like, there's no point in taking a deterministic approach that your life is already set for you. There's no agency in that. So you might as well take the approach that you have control. You have a million levers you can pull at any time if you train yourself to see them and you have the awareness to see them, and you can literally create your own reality.
There was a piece you said that kind of reminded me of this segment in this book that I'm just wrapping up now, where you're like, hey, everybody wants what's best for you, but just in case, like, have this backup plan because it's hard out there. For whatever reason, that kind of reminded me of, like, when people talk about money. Anybody that says money doesn't matter or money's not important, they're probably fucking broke. It is important. You need money. It's not going to get you happiness.
Or if you do,
What's
you have
that?
to say it quietly.
Exactly.
You can't say it too loud.
Exactly. Exactly. It's such an uncomfortable topic for people to talk about, which I find hilarious. It's like, well, why do you go to work every day? Because you just absolutely love it? The percentage of people that are doing that is very fucking slim. I know you love your job. I love my job. We're two of not a lot of people, man. Not a lot of people can say that.
So the question I have for you is, if you believe that what you're doing is your purpose, how did you come into that?
You cut out for a second. What'd you say?
I'm sorry. If you believe that what you're doing right now with NP is your purpose, how did you come into that? How did you come to that conclusion? What did you sacrifice? What was the opportunity cost to make that happen?
Fucking everything, dude. Every last bit of everything. Stability, comfortability, guarantees. There's no guarantee that I was going to make money doing this. There's no guarantee that I was going to have impact on other men's lives doing this. There was no guarantee, like, you don't have health insurance. You don't have a steady paycheck unless you make that steady paycheck happen. All the shit that I used to do, it was steady. It was guaranteed. Show up to work, get paid. Easy. I left all that because I wasn't happy. There was no guarantees. I gave up everything for this. I was freaking broke for the longest time, my wife and I were. Freaking out, dude. Freaking out. I just was on a podcast telling the story. Freaking the fuck out. Depression, not feeling like you're good enough. You're a failure. You're a loser. Not good enough. That's a hard pill for people to swallow.
Yeah,
You're never gonna succeed right away, in my opinion. Okay, you built this gym that I want to talk about. Well, how do you know you're gonna get members? Just because you have a gym doesn't mean anybody wants to come train with you. Doesn't mean that somebody wants to coach or get coached by you or get coached by Tyler. None of that shit's guaranteed, man. Not like you can believe in it all day long, every day, all day. You might have the best marketing plan, the best vision, the best podcast, the best merch, whatever. And you can believe in that wholeheartedly. If people don't believe in that as well, like, it's just a pipe dream, dude. It doesn't mean shit.
I think a lot of that comes back to, again, to awareness. Is, have you been open to actual feedback, good or bad? How are you received? Are you willing to take a rational look in the mirror? Are you actually providing value? Are you good at what you do? Or is it just kind of a masturbation practice to where, especially with strength and fitness, man, this is an unpopular observation, but I think strength, health, and fitness is the lowest barrier of entry to any profession to tell other adults what to do. And to have people willingly lean into this and just like, dude, tell me what to do. I want abs. I want this. I want this. To just somebody who's 22 years old, that there's nothing inherently wrong with them, right? It's like, they're not super fit. They're not morbidly obese. They might have congratulations on your face. But other adults, tax-paying adults in their 30s and 40s will just lean in like, just tell me what to do. I think fitness profession has the lowest barrier of entry to that. I don't want my lawyer just being somebody who watched a bunch of TV shows on it, or somebody who YouTubed their way through the bar. I don't want them representing me in court on manslaughter charges or something. I want a fucking professional. And so I think in the fitness industry, it's easy to get that validation from others. And I don't know the data, but that could also be why this is one of the historically, it's probably as bad as like the restaurant business or something, for gyms going under. And because I don't think a lot of people are taking a rational look at how effective they are and growing and learning more and adapting. I mean, if your philosophy now is the same it was 5 years ago, you're fucking up.
Agreed.
Right? And you're probably, that coasting is only working if you're going downhill.
Oh, I get asked this question a lot, so I'm going to hit you with it. The question I get asked very frequently is, I mean, you see our line of work, a lot of gyms out there, a lot of coaches out there, a lot of strength and conditioning guys, right? Tyler, why should I work with you? Okay. Well, Beau, why should people work with you? What sets you apart?
What sets me apart? 15 years of mistakes. I remember back, way back in the day, I would have people puking during my warm-ups. You know what I mean? I had the 5-finger shoes on and the fucking headband. You know what I mean? Like, I wore the costume. I've been there. I competed in CrossFit in the Jurassic era. Guess who's really not competing in CrossFit from the time I did it? Almost everybody. They're all doing a different rendition of that because they've learned and they've evolved and they know this isn't sustainable. So, why should somebody work with me? I want them to try 5 other gyms and 10 other coaches. I would rather them do that. so that they know what don't work, that doesn't work. But I tell you what, we're kind of seen as like this hardcore gym, which is really, really weird to me. Just because our athletes move well, because there's a level of intention behind what we do, and we have a standard that we try to set. When I get somebody walk in that's never been in a gym before, and they just walk in smiling, they're like, "Hey, I heard this was a place to train." That fires me up more than, one of our big Arnold deadlift strongman guys is pulling 700 for reps. Because this guy's a clean slate. I can have a massive impact on this individual.
Yeah.
And from the ground up, we don't have to unwire and unlearn, whether it's movement or, when people switch gyms, the cultural stuff, the bad vibes, the ego stuff, the comparison. I don't have time for that shit. My one question to anybody is really simple. Do you want to be better or not? It's that simple. And if you want to just walk in and get in the corner and do the thing, that's great, but you're paying too much. Go somewhere else. If you want to improve, we need to have a conversation. I need to know a lot more about you. This isn't just a transaction, right? If you're not open to feedback, if you're not receptive and wanting, have the humility to be a student, you're paying too much. You can go down the road, save $40 and just do whatever Wild West, hitty, boot camp, hamster wheel shit you want. And if that is what you want, great. I can recommend you to those gyms. And I don't know if you have a similar perspective of it's easy. And I've been here before where you can get bitter about the industry. And you see the Wild West shit that goes on social media, you're just like, oh my God. It's like anything else, like that negativity will burn you out. You'll be resentful, you'll be bitter. And I got to a point years ago where I stopped letting that affect my energy and my perspective. And so I had to create a hierarchy. And maybe, I don't know if this will resonate with you. I don't know what your relationship with any of this is, but I had to create my Beau's hierarchy of give a fuck, right? My first layer is Beau the person, and this is being in the fitness industry. If there's an individual that goes out of their way to move more than their day requires, fuck yeah, get your 10,000 steps, get 5,000 steps, take the stairs, park in the back of the parking lot. Good for you. That's Beau the human. If you're moving, awesome. Then there's a second layer. Are you doing something maybe organized that maybe we're not tethered to purpose, but you're beyond just the movement for the sake of movement. And now you're going to be forced to learn some stuff. Maybe you're going to have to learn how to eat. Maybe you're going to have others who are requiring you to show up on time to the 9 a.m. class. Awesome. I don't even care what you're doing. Now you have a little community in there. Now there's a third one. Are you doing some functional stuff? Are you getting your heart rate up? Are you tapping into different energy systems? Or maybe you're using a barbell for the first time. Awesome. That's super rad. But where and that's Beau the human, right? Hoorah, like, dude, do whatever you can do to move. To Beau the professional, like Beau the professional definitely has a very different perspective. And that is to do something that, a balanced, progressive strength and conditioning program that has some level of skill acquisition. So you're not just jacked or sexy or ripped and totally useless, has some type of utility, right? I don't mean that in a bad way. I'm just being curt. And do you have a recovery system in place? Do you understand stress management? Do you have all of these other things? Because we know fitness and strength isn't just like building IKEA furniture. You don't just follow steps 1 through 6 until you get abs or the bookcase you bought. Right. And if by some act of God you do, now how do you keep it? Because what worked for you last year, what worked for you now isn't going to work for you this year. And so there goes the hamster wheel. So where Beau the human lives, my perspective on when I find out where they're at in their journey and they ask for advice, I'm like, dude, maybe you just drop the number of Cokes you're drinking a day, or you find alternatives. We view it on a gradient of optimal to not optimal versus Denver Bronco personnel coming in saying, hey, I want you to work with me this offseason. Vastly different. So I've had to create that hierarchy so that I conserve my energy for the shit that I see on social media or what other people are doing. I just don't and it's helped me. I don't even pay attention to it anymore. So I know I didn't answer the question directly, but I think it's a matter of being able to meet people where they're at and give them the system that's going to work for them.
Yeah, because everybody's at a different level. How often are you getting people that roll through that gym that have never been in a gym before?
It's rare. We might get 2 to, maybe 4 or 5 a year, I think. And some of them have either never been in a gym of that and I'm not saying of that caliber, but maybe they did cross country in high school, or they were runners, or they have minimal oversight or no coaching, right? When people reach out and you're like, oh yeah, I'm a weightlifter. I'm like, give me your description of weightlifter. Do
Right.
you lift like weights, or are you a weightlifter? Because it's vastly different.
So
So
how's that make you feel when they're like, hey, I was told this was the place to be?
it's just, for me, it's like, giddy up, let's go. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And I hope, for the most part, I hope they've tried other gyms. And I hope they're coming in with a level of humility and want to improve and not just do the thing.
Surfing your page earlier, and this one really caught my eye because I'm not tracking and I want to learn more. You were quoted saying, "I'm a fan of routine until it becomes routine." Explain that for me, please.
So this comes back to having a level of intention. And there's a quote that I throw around. It's not my quote. I throw around about habit. And it's something along the lines of, give me a task and I will do it with the efficiency of like a human, the efficiency of a machine. If you're if you're light and hands off with me, well, I can destroy men or I can make men. If you're lenient with me, I can destroy you. If you're heavy with me, then I can give you the world. And I think we don't audit our actions often enough. And so when and this comes back to curiosity, as far as like my previous morning routine was, wake up. I have a Morpheus strap that I'm playing with for, I don't know if you're familiar with Morpheus. It takes your HRV and it gives you your exact heart rate zones for the day based on your recovery. I like geeking out on that stuff. I'm not saying it's necessary, but I would do that for a while. And then that became mind numbing. And I was just going through the motions and there wasn't a level of intention. I'd probably already gotten what I needed out of that routine. And then I'm sitting there, it's like 4:50 a.m. And rather than doing that, I'm just kind of zoned out. And I'm like, you know what? Okay, this isn't moving the needle for me anymore. So I need to and I haven't had time to do like apnea training because I'm going to be getting into some free diving. So I'm going to go ahead and move to this. I'm not saying routine is bad. I'm saying your routine served a purpose. Hopefully it served a purpose, because we have routines, whether it's serving us or not. A lot of people have a routine of having 3 glasses of wine every night. That's their routine. And they don't even think about it. It's mindless. And so it's worth auditing that. Is this serving me anymore? It served a purpose, but did I get what I needed out of this? And is it time to pivot? So that's where I do believe in the power of routine to make certain things easier. But how often are we auditing that routine to see if it still serves us? Because I know I notice plenty of routines that I'm like, whoa, I didn't even realize when I started doing this, but I need to knock this shit off because it's not,
Yeah.
I'm complaining about we're all in a race. We're all in a dead last for more time, right? You, me, there's nobody I know with 25 hours in a day. And the moment we start handing that off to habit and that mindlessness, we're simultaneously giving up our agency to make a choice in that decision. Are we doing that with intention? Right now, I'm trying to create like another storyline of how this is effective. Like, say I'm not a huge bow hunter. I've worked with bow hunters on the GPP side, but I'm not a huge bow hunter. So your audience seems like this dude doesn't know what he's talking about. But I'm sure there are specific skills you work with, right, as a bow hunter. But if you just keep doing the same skill over and over, let's imagine I have a waste basket 3 feet in front of me. And I'm like, oh, I'm just going to sit here and shoot crumbled up pieces of paper into that waste basket till I get good at it. And I went from 3 out of 10 and now I'm 10 out of 10. I'm like, fuck yeah, I'm killing it. What? At some point you have to move the basket back, or you need to adjust where you're at to move the needle and make it a little more difficult or challenging or learn a new skill. So the routine has a place, but are you auditing that routine to see if it still serves you anymore?
Yeah, that's actually a good example. It reminds me of one of my buddies. You brought up bow hunting, and I definitely didn't have any intentions of talking bow hunting on this podcast with you. But one of my buddies, Dylan Ness, he's literally the best bow hunter I know. The guy's a stud. I don't even think he owns a firearm. And he has a whole range laid out at his house from, 20 yards to freaking a buck 30. He's launching bombs at his house. And we were doing a podcast probably last year, and we were talking. He's like, I was training, and the guy shoots hundreds of arrows a day. And he's like, I had a thought to myself, like, I can't remember the last time I missed a target. Like, he knows every inch of his range, right? He knows he doesn't even need to use his rangefinder. Hey, that's at 74. That's at 96. He's like, dude, so I went way out back. I took a little, he's got like a little turkey or whatever, like foam target. He's like, dude, it was like 50-mile-an-hour winds. I shot like through my window, off my knees. He's like, I was like pretty much intentionally trying to miss this fucking thing. He was pushing himself though. Like he was in such a routine of, hey, just arrow after arrow in the money shot, money shot, money shot. He's like, dude, I need to get uncomfortable because when there's a lot of uncomfortable situations in the mountains you can't control, where that animal's going to be, and you're going to take less than ideal shots. So he was putting himself in those kind of opportunities to basically fuck up, just to remember what that feels like. Hey, I'm not as good as I think that I am.
And let me reframe that to something that might be more digestible. Is the habits that got you here served you, right?
Yeah.
But maybe that's not what it takes to get to the next level or to what you want to do. So in that instance, maybe they're holding you back. One of my athletes he's Olympic trap shooter, right? So he's shotgun and killing it, shows up. He's always just, he's constantly iterating, constantly tweaking, and reps and reps and reps and reps and reps. And then he goes to work with this other coach, and this other coach has to fully deconstruct how he stands, how he, like all of this stuff. And when they but you might have to get worse before you get better at something, right? Maybe the new habit or the new routine, maybe it's a little clunky, but over time, because you're doing things that are pushing you in the direction you want to go or more efficiently, ultimately it's going to get you a better result.
Yes. It sounds like, working with you or going to your gym is a lot more than just like, hey, let's get a pair of six-pack abs. Let's, increase our bench press or our deadlift. It sounds like there's a lot of mental, like mindset and almost lifestyle type of coaching. It seems like you're very intimate with your athletes. Am I correct by saying that?
Yeah, we try to be. We definitely try to be. Obviously, we have to meet people with where they're at. And dude,
Sure.
I've been doing this so long. I remember when I thought that abs were the thing. Just like other people on the other end, they remember when they thought money was the thing. You know what I mean? And it's like, if you think abs or money is going to make you happy, you don't know anybody with abs or money.
I saw that post. Yeah, dog.
Which is true. So it was like, who can you become in this process of trying to achieve the thing? Now, that's what we try to get across. But we have 75 minutes with people. And we have to warm them up, do X, Y, Z. So a lot of this is in the side conversations. There are conversations in the sauna or the cold tub where we can teach you about your physiology. I have a men's group at the gym. I'm being pushed to start a women's group because women are having incredible challenges now. And after doing strength and conditioning and fitness for 15 years now, but athletics and fitness being a part of my entire life, I can't unknow that the reps and the sets aren't what's going to change your life. It can be a vessel for the lessons that will change your life. And if that's how I incentivize you, if you want to get ripped, dude, let's go. Because if you want to get ripped, what am I going to have to teach you? Nutrition, sleep, stress. I'm going to have to cortisol. We're going to have a lot of conversations about stuff, right? But again, going back to the IKEA furniture, people are like, no, I did my conditioning and this, and the program's not working, bro. And then they come in the gym with, drinking a fucking box of bone, I'm not kidding, drinking a box of bone broth with 3,000 milligrams of sodium. And they wonder why they're fucking bloated. No, this works for me because I heard it on a podcast. Okay, let me know how that works out for you, bro. And so if we can use training as the vessel for that, I can teach you all kinds of stuff that you would have never come into contact with had you not taken on that challenge or that endeavor of getting a big back squat or getting in shape or running a marathon. And I think that's where the skill-based physical expression comes into play. Like if you want to get good at gym stuff, dude, I'll get you really good at gym stuff. I can get you the deadlift you want, the squat you want, this. But now I've been doing this so long that I want there to be some utility in that. How does this make you a better human? How does this make you a better father? How does this get you access to greater experiences? So that we break this hamster wheel thing and not have your perception of fitness come down to this calories in, calories out, hamster wheel, more punishment, more Goggins, more get some. Hard work pays off. It's like, no, smart work pays off. Awareness pays off. And if I can teach you, awareness is the single greatest thing I can teach an individual.
Elaborate.
When you realize that if your rendition of hard work pays off, is going into the gym 6 to 7 days a week, some of those 2 a days, and smashing your dick in the door for 2 hours at a time, and eating like dog shit, not sleeping, still consuming alcohol. Let's see how sustainable that is. Maybe if you're 18-year-old to 25-year-old freak, maybe 30-year-old freak, yeah, you can get away with that for a while until the split second you can't because your body's not going to compensate anymore. I'm 43 years old. There's plenty of stuff that I do not do anymore that I did in my 20s. So I don't poo-poo it, right? Because you have to learn, you have to put too much salt on the food to know it's too much salt on the food. You know what I mean? Like you got to go touch that wall on the outside. But if you don't develop awareness around your own behaviors around fitness or begin to change your identity around fitness, then you're going to stay stuck in that hamster wheel. The only way we change is through, well, let me put it this way, and this is when it comes to awareness. Are you familiar with like technical and adaptive solutions and problems? So if I need the brakes on my car changed, there's a professional that puts food on their table. He went to school, he's certified, he can fix that problem for me. I don't need to learn how to do my own brakes. People approach fitness the same way, where they're like, oh, Beau's 43 years old and he kind of looks like his skin's painted on. He can solve my problems for me. So they're like, give me the program.
Ain't no, kind of about it, brother. You're fucking diced.
That's all brand new. That's all we can talk about kind of my history with training and a little bit. I'm as surprised as everybody else. But the only way when we run one of the biggest fallacies of the human condition, well, so let me talk about adaptive problems on the other hand, are my relationship with food isn't very good. None of these diets work for me. I'm doing the programming, but it's not working. It's like, no, you probably need to change something about yourself internally, whether it's a story, a narrative, an approach, a perspective. That's why I'm such a philosophy. I love philosophy because it changes the software in your mind. And if I can get you to realize that you need to change your relationship with the 3 glasses of wine a night, or change your relationship with sleep. Sleep is a huge one. It's like, no, dude, I heard, sleep, I'll sleep when I'm dead, 4 or 5 hours. Yes. Let me know how that works out for you. When your hormones are fucked, your T levels are jacked, your cortisol's through the roof, and you look like a fucking bag of milk because your cortisol's through the roof and you're just bloated. Let me know how that works out for you. But if I can change your perspective, now we can begin to solve these more adaptive problems and changing the individual you are, your perspective, your philosophy, your approach on it. And the biggest fallacy of the human condition is we try to solve adaptive problems with technical solutions. I can't fix anything for you. I can't do anything. I can guide, I can ask questions, but at the end of the day, it's like, have you ever done therapy?
Yeah.
Yeah, my man. The way therapy works, you don't just walk in to therapy and they're like, Tyler, this is what's wrong with you. This XYZ shouldn't work that way. I hope to God it doesn't. What is, you ask questions and somebody asks you questions and those questions get harder and harder and harder and harder. And then you come to your own conclusion. They might know the answer, but they have to evoke the answer out of you. Because you have to say it with your own pie hole. It has to come out. You're like, oh shit, I'm responsible for this? No way. It's me again. The Spider-Mans all looking at each other, pointing at each other. And if I can get somebody to realize that it's their habits or their behaviors or what they think fitness is, if I can begin to change some of that, maybe I can get them close. Maybe I can, number one, get them to change perspective on them. Number two, maybe I'm getting them closer to their purpose, right? Maybe because the woman who reaches out saying, I want to lose 20 pounds because XYZ, she thinks she wants to lose 20 pounds, right? But the reality is she wants to look better in a bathing suit for her husband, or the emotional connection she has with being unhealthy, or she doesn't want to have to hold the baby in front of her all the time, or put a strategically placed fucking semi truck a certain distance so she looks smaller, right? That's what she wants. She doesn't care about the 20 pounds. She wants to be more confident, right? In her own body. So if I can slowly get her moving that direction and ask greater questions, maybe I can get her more confident in her body, because maybe having an 8-pack isn't realistic for her and it's not sustainable anyway. We all know that. But maybe I can get her, instead of doing this hamster wheel of punishment and calories in, calories out, maybe I can get her to run a 10K. Maybe I can train her to do that. Maybe I can train her for a trail race. Maybe I can train her for a powerlifting competition, right? And now through that process, I can change the way she views fitness, see it from a performance perspective. And we know aesthetics will follow performance. Performance doesn't follow aesthetics. Performance is more sustainable and you're actually learning skills. You'll learn more about yourself in one marathon or one powerlifting meet than you ever will doing the same shitty 45-minute circuit every day. Okay, that was fun. High five. Do it again tomorrow. Now, if that's where you're at Cool. I get it. I hope that works out for you. But I've been doing this for 15 years. And I know that's, if you want real results, it's not sustainable. And it doesn't mean you have to be a total hard ass. I train less now than I did before. And my results are better than ever. And I'm 43 years old. So if I can begin to change somebody's mind and bring some awareness to their behaviors, then I have a chance of eliciting real change with this person.
Yeah, and all that shit that you're saying too, dude, that's first fucking base. You can give them all of it, but then they actually have to apply that. Then they actually have to lead that life. Same thing with these podcasts, man. Oh, fucking Beau and Tyler were on fire for an hour, man. There's so much good information. It was great. Take something. Actually, don't just listen to it. Fucking apply it. That's where people miss the boat.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just go ahead, please.
No. That's where people miss the boat. That's all I was going to say.
No, and so actually, I'm saying this publicly for the first time that I'm actually launching a new program. My gym's phenomenal. I love the gym. But as far as a personal brand, I want to be able to create a more intimate connection. I can spend an hour with you, but if I can spend a day or a weekend with you and really dig into change your mind, we can create a community. Our community is phenomenal. But I'm actually about to launch an ebook. I've been a strength coach for 15 years. Strength is right there in the name. And this is where kind of I delve into some of my men's group stuff. And maybe this will hit with you is, there's layers to say, I've been a strength coach 15 years. To say I've thought a little bit about what strength means to me is an understatement. It's almost kind of become an obsession. And you have a group of men that you work with very closely as well, right?
You bet.
Yeah. And the physical, we have this myopic approach to physical strength. And I've been there. And a lot of what I've learned in life, good or bad, has come from the gym, the barbell, hard work, discipline, failure, perseverance. Like the gym has been the vessel for me. But there's other layers there I view strength from a philosophical perspective of there's physical strength, there's mental strength, there's emotional strength. And the latest one I've kind of been chewing on is the spiritual strength. And the spiritual aspect, that's why I asked you how you made the pivot over to doing the thing to jumping out of the airplane, jumping off the cliff and building the wings on the way down, because that's a level of purpose that I think a lot of people aren't tied to. And so when I've set this approach out, I have this ebook. It's not long, but my goal moving forward with this specific program, and especially with men, is to begin to change their perspective on what they think strength is. And so many people in our field view strength as how tough you are, how much weight's on the bar, how many miles can you go, how much of a beating can you take, and how many of us have been rewarded socially for being tough, especially as men. That's how we're rewarded. But then, as I posted the story on my social media feed this morning, I'm leaving the gym and this guy in a BMW, he looks like he has some muscle on, and he's going like 35 miles per hour through the parking lot, and I have a Tundra, and I kind of pulled out. I'm just going Cadillac pace. I just worked out. I'm cool in the gang. And this dude just like throws his hand up, gets all crunchy and lays on his horn. I'm like, this dude probably brings that energy home to his wife. You know what I mean? This dude is fucking ramped up all day, and he's probably walking in the gym to get some. And then he's probably going to go to Whole Foods, yell at the lady bagging his fucking groceries. Like, is that a sign of strength? You know what I mean? Strength to me is mastery. It's control. And the same way we do it under a barbell. I like the way, under a barbell, when I view strength, it's your ability to hold position, right? Under a back squat, no matter what you're doing. And with bow hunting, you have to be able to hold position. How strong are you in this position? Let's look at that from an ethical perspective. How strong are you at holding to your own values, your own ethics, your own morals? Do you even have a code? Do you have values? And that was one of the latest things I've learned in the last several years is values. I used to think it was a bunch of cheese dick granola stuff, but it's like my values have set a framework for how I make decisions. And I'll give you an example to where I've had a number of opportunities to make a lot more money doing corporate stuff. And it sounds good on paper, but one of my values is impact, period. Everything I've done, that's been one common denominator in my life, is impact. And if those opportunities don't give me the level of impact I want, it's binary. It's a fuck yes or it's a no. And those values help me dictate what decisions I make. And so how often are men, we say we want to do the thing, we verbalize, we know the language, and then what happens? We're like, oh no, I'm not going to drink. I'm not going to do X, Y, Z. I don't care if people drink. I just want you to do you have a good reason to do it? Or were you just because everybody else was? And going back to the level of intention that we talked about, and this is my spiel on alcohol. I literally, Tyler, I do not care if people drink or not. I care if you're the one making the decision on whether you drink or not, right? Are you doing with a level of intention? Or because I don't think personally, I don't want to do anything in my life without being on purpose, right? And if I'm just bullied, I don't want to say bullied, that's a bad term, but if I'm just going on a Tuesday night to drink for no other reason than everybody else is, that's not a very good reason. No. And so when we talk about mental strength, emotional strength, or physical strength, how are you holding your position against that, bro? You know what I mean? How are you holding your position when you come home to your wife or your old lady about not bringing your hard day home to her? Because guess what, dude? She's had a full day too. Maybe she's gone through some shit. And I'm not saying to bury emotions and things like that. I'm like, can we teach this as a trainable skill to where you don't just have to be some David Goggins guy born with it, right? We can teach mental strength, emotional strength, and the spiritual aspect the same way we get reps on a barbell. And that's where one of the places, me and my man BP, Brian, why it's interesting. I'm always fascinated. And I have this with a couple other friends, people who've walked very, very different paths in life who've come to the same conclusion. I'm fascinated with those people. My guy, Matt Vincent, I connected with him the exact same way. And so Brian's was like football and self-improvement. And mine was a matter of having the platter of careers, kind of not wanting to tolerate my own bullshit anymore, and then helping other people solve problems. But I'll use going to Brian. It was one of the reasons that I use, let's take sauna and cold tub, is when I put somebody in a cold, when I put somebody in the cold tub, we use that as an external controlled environment to see how you deal with stress, is really at the end of the day what it is. And if I get 10 people in a room and I start talking about how we're going to do this, I talk about there's 16 pounds of ice, or there's 160 pounds of ice in there. They start creating a story that, oh, this is going to be so cold. They've already lost. They've already fucking lost. They're already, and they are in an air conditioned building. The reality is they're in an air-conditioned building in Denver, Colorado, surrounded by beautiful people on a sunny day. That's a reality. And they're going to sit and they're going to be cold for 2 minutes. But they create this story that's so bad that by the time they get in, they're like, and it's like, why don't we just drop the story about any of it? Like, it's okay to be cold. So when I deal with men, dude, it's okay to be stressed. It's totally okay. There's nothing wrong with you. It's okay to feel this way. Do you realize that your emotions are actually like they're affecting your physiology? Do you realize that this isn't just some, when we talk about emotion, everybody focuses on the field, right? But they don't realize it's actually a neurological and chemical cascade that's causing you to feel like that. So one of the things we teach, and I've been having to teach this to a lot of women too, is like fear is a physiological and neurochemical cascade, right? What happens when you experience fear? You have receptors in your heart. They notice a change in blood pressure. That change in blood pressure causes your heart rate to speed up, right? So now your blood's pumping and now your hippocampus is being overrun by cortisol. So you get myopic, your peripherals turn off, you become myopic to the threat, your digestion goes down, you're not hungry, you're probably not very horny, your reproduction drive goes down, and your ability to assimilate memories, because the hippocampus is overrun by cortisol, goes down. But escape routes become very, very salient, right? Very salient. Your spatial awareness actually increases. If you can understand, and some people go all day in that high level of stress mode. And the metaphor I use is if you're in that state and you can understand how, say I have a very, very nice coffee mug here. Say my grandmother gave me this coffee mug, or a friend. And when I look at the coffee mug when I'm relaxed, I notice the detail. It was hand painted, this, that, and the other. That's how I'm interacting with that coffee mug when I'm cool in the gang, when I'm chill. All of a sudden, when I'm ramped up and I have this neurological cascade of fear and stress, I now look at that coffee mug used as a blunt weapon in a fight. If we can wrap our head around that metaphor, we can see that the state that we're in literally affects our reality of how we interact with the rest of the world, with everything being a threat, with it being their fault. And that's why we don't understand it. We just have this feeling. We don't understand how it's actually affecting us. One of the things we try to teach is like, dude, when we get into the ice, does your state match your environment? What is your environment? Your environment is you're in a you're in an air conditioned building in Denver, Colorado, surrounded by a whole bunch of beautiful people, and you're going to sit in cold water for 2 minutes. That's the reality. But what is your state? Chill. And if I can get you to understand that stress response, you'll see where that respiratory drive starts picking up in other areas. I'll give you, before I did this podcast, right? About an hour before the podcast, I'm like, dude, I'm going to lay it on thick with Tyler. We're going to rip. And then all of a sudden my mouth goes dry. And I'm like, oh, shit, like here it comes, right? You get nervous, which is good. Can you control it? And I'm sure you experience that as well. So do you understand the physiological ramifications of you experiencing this state? You can choose, you can make a choice, because being anxious and being excited, it's the same physiological, neurological cascade. It's the story you tell yourself about how it's going to go. If you think something's going to go incredibly well, you get excited. If you think you're going to shit the bed, you get anxious. If you think the outcome is going to be bad, that's anxiety. If you think the outcome is going to be good, that's excitement. Same neurological bloom, same chemical bloom, different perspective. And if I can get people to begin to wrap their head around that and teach this stuff as a trainable skill, that shit will change how you interact with every aspect of your life.
That's huge, Beau. And kind of going off your point, man, we touched on earlier how powerful your words are, how much meaning they hold, but your thoughts are equally as important. So when you're saying, dude, if you think you're gonna shit the bed, you're gonna shit the bed. I'm telling you right now, you're gonna fucking shit the bed all over it. If you think you're going to get on the podcast and crush and lay it on thick and have a really constructive, awesome conversation that's going to help thousands of people that listen, guarantee it'll go that way.
Yeah,
guarantee it'll go that way.
Having just experienced your own separation, isolation that's never going to be good enough, you still have to move through that emotion and that feeling and that narrative and do the thing anyway, right? And then through getting those reps in, you're like, oh, you know what? That voice is kind of always there. There's nothing wrong with me. It's always there. It's a protective mechanism. It's making sure I don't do anything stupid. But I need to learn to navigate that voice. And maybe if once I identify it, maybe it's not as loud anymore. And maybe I start hearing the other voices, right? Because if you just shut up for 2 minutes and pay attention to what goes on in your mind, it's a monkey just banging on shit. And every human being has been like that. And if you can just learn to navigate that noise and not associate with it, like, oh yeah, this sucks. This, being out in the woods, 70-pound pack, I've done ultras, I've done this whole sampler platter adventures. I'm like, oh yeah, this sucks. Cool. I don't have to have an opinion about it. It's okay. It's totally okay for this to not feel really good right now. But you know what? I'm going to do it anyway. That's it. I'm not going to let it dictate my action. Mm-hmm. And you do that enough, and what happens? If you continue to push through that and you do the harder thing over and over and over, you know what you get to do? Pretty much whatever the fuck you want. You do that long enough. That's what you have waiting for you on the other end of all of those little small decisions of just doing the more difficult thing and leaning into that, regardless of what that little voice in your mind's telling.
Because we all have that little voice. All of us do. In a great way. I've never even really thought about it until, I'm obviously thinking about it now because we're talking about it. But a way that I can bat that little voice is, I'm like, dude, you're not alone, right? You're not. If you're hiking through the mountains with a 70-pound pack on and you're hunting with your buddy, fucking his pound's 70 pounds too. He's going through the same shit. If you're in an air-conditioned room at the gym and you're in a room full of beautiful people and everybody's about to hop in the tub, it's not just you that's hopping in that tub. Everybody else is hopping in that tub. Everybody else is feeling exactly how you're feeling right now. But when you dive into that tub, how are you going to handle it? Are you going to freak the fuck out? Or are you going to realize that this is temporary? You're going to be in this thing for 2 minutes. After 30 seconds, you're numb. So really, it's only 30 seconds of brutality. And then you're going to get out, put the towel on, and you're going to warm back up and throw your sweats back on and carry about your day. Everybody else is going through the same thoughts and the same situations for the most part.
That's why it's comforting. If you think you're the only one going through it, that's rock bottom. Usually bad things happen to everybody. Some of us have a different gradient on what actual consequences are. When I say loser, I don't mean as like a permanent stamp or a permanent hat. But when you think you're the only one going through it, I think it is a bit of a loser mentality. Not saying it's permanent. You can snap out and you can make a different decision later. And we all have those moments, right? Because we're too zoomed in. We're way too zoomed in. And we need to be able to have that mental agility to zoom back out, because we stay right here with the business, right here with the podcast, right here with the likes, right here with the follows, right here with, no, dude, fucking zoom out. It's not that bad. It's not that bad. And if you can maintain that mental agility between survival mode, which, dude, I'm great at survival mode. I have a harder time zooming out in that thriving mode where it's like, oh, you mean I can just like actually enjoy this shit? Like I can make decisions and do things I like. I don't have to just, have my nose to the grindstone all the time. If you can gain that mental agility, but I'm sorry, going back to what I was saying previously, I got off on a tangent there. That's the other reason why I think it's so important to reach out and show gratitude for people when you see them going through it, because other people will assume that everybody else is doing it. You know what I mean? And so there's another perspective shift is I want to make sure I don't mess this up. The difference between jealousy and admiration is whether you think the person earned it or not. So if you see somebody that has something you want, is doing something you want, has results you want, if you look at that individual with this must be nice mentality, yeah, you're a fucking loser. I tend to look at people where the moment you reached out, dude, you were cool in the gang, calm, controlled. This guy knows some shit. I want to communicate with him. My friends that are, heavy on whether it's Instagram influencing or they're heavy into real estate or money or investments. Like I want to know I admire them being on my path. They've gained status in that. I just made a living out of being the strong dude. I have no fucking clue how I did it because I graduated high school at 150 pounds. So I have some value.
Yeah, but you do though. But you do. You know how you did it.
Oh, I know how I did it, but that was never in the plan. If you have asked me again, when I was 15 years old, when I was graduating high school at 152 pounds, made fun of for the size of my arms, I wouldn't bench press because I was so weak at it. I was a great athlete. I was a baseball player. If you would have told me that, like, bro, by the time you're benching 400 pounds, you're going to be putting money on your table by being the strong guy, I'd have been like, what the fuck? So it's like all of that was just, just following my curiosity and my passion and willingness to learn. But when I see these other individuals that have attained something that I want, like, I want to be around these type of people. I want to be around these killers. Their success doesn't say anything about me and where I'm at on my journey. They've probably worked their tits off to do that. And so if you look at people through that lens of admiration, rather than this jealousy, resentment, bucket of crabs bullshit. Now, are you in law enforcement also?
I was.
You were. So
that's what I left. That's what I left to do this.
You're pretty familiar with kind of the bucket of crabs thing then, right? Once you have this barrier of entry to go in, then everybody's like, ooh, thank God we can chill and we can just get unathletic and complacent. And I have a lot of firefighters, so it's a conversation that we have a lot. But I want to be around people that have some type of, I want a value exchange. Even if it's just a good conversation, you will never buy anything from me. I'll probably never buy anything from you. Not saying we won't, but that's not what we're doing here. There's other forms of value than just money in relationships and connections. So if we can focus on that and we can learn something from each other, like those are the type of relationships I want, right? Yeah. So that's how I tend to see when I'm networking and meeting people is like, okay, like I admire what this person's accomplished in their life. I don't see it as it must be nice to XYZ. Like that's just another loser mentality.
It is. It is absolutely a loser's mentality because in your brain, when you see somebody doing something fucking cool, whether it's your buddy who's killing it in real estate or investments, or he's a grade A lawyer or whatever, it's not or must be nice situation. It's like, damn, that dude fucking obviously worked really, really hard to get to where he's at and to have all the things that he has or she has. I look at it the same way, Beau. I look at it the same fucking way, man. How else are you gonna look at it? Maybe we just think different. I don't know, but it's like, how else are you gonna look at it, brother?
They need to realize they have a choice. They don't realize that monkey banging on the thing is dictating how they interact with their world.
Yeah.
That's what it's just awareness. If I can just make you aware and give you options on, hey, by the way, there's other ways, there's another perspective here. And remember that whatever you're projecting on that individual, that's your own criticism on yourself for what you haven't achieved, right? So maybe you should deal with that before you start throwing rocks at other people. You know what I mean? So I think it's about and going back to kind of men, which is a lot of what I work with in the personal brand space and a lot of my guys, getting them aware of how these thoughts, feelings, and emotions are dictating their outcomes and showing them that they always have a choice. They always have agency. I know it sounds like bullshit, and sometimes it feels good to be angry. Sometimes it feels good to be spiteful. especially, I'm military, you were law enforcement, the self-deprecating shit. Like, don't get me wrong, I love a good laugh every once in a while. And at the cost of myself or the cost of one of my friends or somebody else. I love a good shit talking session. But you can't let that be the main common denominator that you have with yourself and with your peers. Like, if there's not an equal level of respect and gratitude, if that, some people don't like the word gratitude, whatever, reframing it to something positive, it gets really dark really quick, man, really dark. And I've been there before. And then next thing you know, you're just pissed off at everything. You're pissed off at the world. You're probably pretty lonely because the people you're hanging around that tolerate your bullshit, they're miserable too. And so it just turns into this just mediocrity stew, right? Of everybody sitting around complaining and agreeing that it's everybody else's fault that they don't have what they want in their
How do you get better, Bo? You've been doing this for 15 years, man.
reps and sets. Reps and sets, man. The way I try to train this and with breath work, and here's another thing. And I'm so glad that there are people moving into this space and that we can talk about like mental health and things like that to build awareness around it. That most of the people that tend to be like this triangle of people who've kind of been attracted to my style of coaching are veterans, ex-ballers, like ex or even professional athletes, and some like executives. And I don't really like the term high performer, which everybody likes to throw around a lot. I think it's just people that have put themselves in so many scenarios that the world has given them so much feedback that they can't be light years off about who they are in the world. They've done things so difficult. It's like your buddy with his bow hunting. He was like, oh, I haven't missed a shot. Guess what I need to do? Put myself in a greater situation to get feedback, the feedback I need to improve. I think anybody can improve. I think it's just, do you want to be better or not? But if you can get people who've already accustomed to iteration and adapting, it's easier for them to digest because they're not so closely tied to the story. So breath work. I do 5 minutes every morning. I always like the theme that a monk doesn't retire. So if I want to keep control of myself mentally, make sure my state matches my environment at all times. I'm not flying off, being like homie in the parking lot who just got his fucking Jimmy in a twist and ruined day because you know what I mean? Like that guy's going to carry that energy around with him all day. I don't want to be that guy. And if once I can get somebody aware that like, yeah, dude, like it doesn't feel good. That is causing harm with your relationship with your wife, with your relationship with your coworkers. You're super ramped up when you're going to the board meeting. That's why you shit the bed. If I can get somebody to build an awareness and make a change there, I can teach reps and sets and show you that at any given time, you have 50 levers out in front of you that are invisible now, but I can show you these levers that you can pull at any given time to change the state and get you closer to the outcome you want. And that's just repetition, repetition, repetition. What starts with breath work and being able to, do you even know HRV is a thing? Do you monitor your resting heart rate? Do you know when you're ramped up? Do you know when you've had bad sleep? Do you know how many sleep cycles you should need? I'm not saying you have to obsess over these, but I need you to know that they're a thing. And once I teach you that they're a thing, then you can make the conscious choice on whether you want to use this to make your life better. Maybe it doesn't. I'll teach you 20 tools. You can take 2 of them and tell me to go fuck myself with the other 18. I don't care because those are the tools I've used. Maybe they don't work for you. Maybe that's where somebody like Brian and myself we've come to the same conclusions, right? But his might resonate more with the NFL guys and the tactical side, and maybe mine resonate more with executives and veterans. Who knows? But at the end of the day, if people want to improve, yeah, reps and sets, build the awareness to it, monitor the internal dialogue. Everyone just check in with your respiratory drive. I tell people that the respiratory drive is the first thing to respond to stress. If I can get you aware of your respiratory drive, that's one level of awareness that once you know it, you can't forget it. And then all of a sudden you have that conversation or you have a meeting with an employee and all of a sudden you realize you're not breathing. Holy shit, I'm not breathing. Then what's my heart rate doing? My heart rate's elevated. Well, I'm getting into that sympathetic state. I need to bring that back down, control my state so that I can go have an open conversation with this individual. Or do I need to fucking ramp up and get a buddy off a battlefield or off a mountain? Do I know how to maintain myself in that state? So to me, it's about both ends of the spectrum of, are you capable of action, violence, whatever that looks like? And are you capable of peace and keeping your metaphorical shit together when shit hits the fan, right? If we can operate on both ends of the spectrum, to me, that's a balanced individual. because that is trained, where so many people see this balance as tamed. I don't want to tame any of my instincts. I want my instincts there. I don't want to dull them. I want to control them. So it's not about not feeling this stuff. And I don't think we need to be even overly granola or overly serious about it. Let's just have a fucking conversation about the same 7 or 8 things that all of us go through as human beings, because it's part of our physiology. And if we can see it as that and take the heavy seriousness out of this, have an open conversation about what stress is, what emotion is, what mental strength is. And mental strength isn't getting up at 4 a.m. to get some. I'm sorry, it's not. Mental strength is potentially holding your shit together and being able to shut up when somebody else is going through something. Can you be there for them? So if we can begin to create categories of these, then we can begin to train them. But if we just think we're just at the whim of our emotions and that they control us, there's literally nothing we can do about it. We have to realize, first of all, we have to admit or make a judgment that we do have agency and we do have a choice. And then once we fully grasp the notion that we have a choice, now we can dig into what choices we have. But as long as we think we're a victim, we're in trouble.
Yeah. And all of that is just basically self-awareness.
It comes back to awareness.
Dude, I had kind of like a rough morning this morning. Everything that went on, it was just pissing me off. Like very short fuse. And I called one of my buddies that I confide in, and, we're good friends. And, I had my little vent, and he's like, "Why are you feeling like this?" I was like, "I don't fucking know why I'm feeling like this. It's because of something. I need to unpack this really quick." He's like, "Dude, drop down to the floor, do 20 burpees. That seems to work for you." I'm like, "You're right." But at least I recognized it, right? I was like, "Dude, I got to do a podcast in 15 minutes. I got to be on my game."
And that's where there shouldn't be any, let's get rid of any of the shame or guilt or any of the bullshit around this. It's like, dude, like sometimes it feels good to be pissed off, especially as men.
It felt fucking great at the time.
Like, I get it. Don't take it out on the woman at Whole Foods. Go take it out on a fucking barbell. You know what I mean? A little bit of focused aggression. It's yesterday, exact same scenario, dude. I've been working on this new website, working on this program. As an entrepreneur, no one's telling you what to do. So you have to dictate. I have 30 things I have to do. I need to pick 2 and stay as far the fuck away from the other 28 as possible. I can only do 2. I have 1 ass. I can ride 2 horses sometimes. Most of the time, just 1. But I'm all ramped up. I'm like, fuck this, that, and the other. I go to the gym. I grab the Atlas stones. I call this, it's my attitude adjustment. I post this a lot on social media. It's like, dude, stress is a call to action, right? Well, we use the concept of run your dog. If your dog's inside and he's all anxious and he's getting in the trash and he's barking at shit, you don't sit him down on the couch and have a conversation.
Don't put him in the crate.
Take him out and you run that motherfucker. 20 minutes, 30 minutes, let him go. That dog's going to come back, do 3 little circles, and fall the fuck asleep. Human beings are the same. Stress is a call to action. It's a call to movement. That's probably been the one saving grace that's kept me from over catastrophizing everything. Is like, dude, I just need to go run. I need to go breathe. I need to go lift. And so yesterday it was the same thing. My day got away from me. I'm training for to run the Grand Canyon in 6 weeks, but I haven't had time to run. All this stuff. I'm like, dude, like I don't want to do conditioning, but I need to go get some physical aggression out. 250-pound Atlas stone, set of farmer carry handles, 3, 2, 1, go fuck yourself, 20 minutes. And guess what? Guess how I was feeling after that? Light as a feather, dude. Light as a feather. So understand that stress is a call to action. It's a call to movement. Doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. And it's okay to feel that way. You just need to find a healthy way to channel that.
I love it, man. That's all I got. That was fucking great. I appreciate you.
Is that 90?
Just over 90.
Yeah.
Just over 90. Isn't that crazy how fast time flies when you do these?
When you're having good conversations, man, it always does.
Yeah, brother. Can you plug your social media and your gym and everything else if anybody's in Denver? I don't know if you're in Denver, but just Colorado in general.
Yeah, I'm in Denver on Instagram _Beau Ryan, BeauRyan. My gym is V23 Athletics in Denver. I'll be launching the ebook and a new program called Mission Performance. It's on purpose with purpose. That's going to be a lot of our small group stuff, the men's group. We train people for big physical adventures, running the Grand Canyon. I have a huge event I do every year. It's a fundraiser for a Florida-based 501 called the Crossing for Cystic Fibrosis, where we paddleboard overnight from Bahamas to Florida. It's like 85 miles, one of the coolest things I've ever done. But we try to get people out of the out of their offices and out of their living rooms and out getting actual experience with really rad people and doing cool shit. So if that interests anybody, hit me up. But I'm an open, totally open door. If anybody's out there needing somebody to talk to, please don't hesitate to reach out. So Tyler, I appreciate you, man. This was a lot of fun.
I appreciate you, man. It was an honor. Thanks for coming on, and stay on the line. We'll download your file and I'll get you out of here. Cool.
Sounds good, brother.
Thanks,
Appreciate it.
Bo. All
You got
day.
it.